Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IRSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Jamie University. It is, what day is today? It is Thursday. Yes, April 27th. It is the NFL draft is today, Jamie, and so that's what's going on today. We're not really going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about hopefully some future NFL draft picks. See what I did there, Jamie? With some stuff's going on. So we're going to be talking about recruiting and some players that are trending to Notre Dame right now. Matt Freeman, ISD's Matt Freeman has put in some predictions. So we're going to talk about some of those players who have been predicted to Notre Dame, what they could add to the class if they choose to commit, and where things are going in on that front. We'll also talk about the class at large and any questions that people have. Obviously, we'll get into those as well. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And I want to talk to you guys about ESQ Clothing. And look, ESQ Clothing was at the classiest dinner in the world last night. I'm going to put up the tweet. Marcus Freeman in an ESQ suit from Gawang at the White House for the state dinner. He was the state dinner for the South Korean president. And Marcus Freeman was there with his mother, Chong Freeman. And it was great to see, Jamie. Just the Notre Dame head coach
awesome.
at the White House. That's good stuff. Wearing ESQ clothing from Gawang. Go to esqclothing.com. Check out the bamboo shirts that Jamie and I we reviewed on the show a couple weeks ago. Fantastic fabric, wrinkle-resistant, odor-resistant. First ever bamboo shirt. The Notre Dame football team. They're all wearing ESQ clothing on the player walk and that sort of thing. Marcus Freeman, every time you see him out, when he's not in the Under Armour gear that you can't buy, he is wearing clothes from ESQ clothing. Yeah. You can't buy it, but you can wear all his ESQ clothing.
You can buy his ESQ clothing.
Absolutely.
But you can get it made bespoke for you.
That's right. Bespoke for you. So head over to esqclothing.com and check and upgrade your shirt game, your outfit game, your suit game, all those things. So thank you to ESQ for sponsoring.
What a cool thing to be able to take his mom to that. Like that
absolutely
so amazing. Like
I mean, talk about like the quintessential like LeBron meme. This is my I can't believe this is my life.
Yeah.
Good for Marcus Freeman. Really all right, Jamie. Little bit of breaking news. Let me put up the banner. Let's see. Here's the banner. Oh wait, that was from last week. That's not the banner. Here we go. Tyler Buchner to Alabama. Jamie, I'm shocked. I really am. Look at no shade on Tyler Buchner, right? Like none. Okay. I don't have I think we both like Tyler Buchner as a player. I think we both liked his potential. But for him to, Tommy Rees recruited or tried to bring in multiple transfer quarterbacks to replace Tyler Buchner as the starter at Notre Dame, right? They weren't going to try to bring in a backup. And especially when you bring in Sam Hartman, and now he's going to Alabama, presumably to be, I mean, they're going to say compete for it. Gosh, I would be super bummed if he ended up not winning the quarterback battle and now he's got to be a backup at Alabama and you don't have the chance to earn the Notre Dame degree. I'm very surprised by this. I did not think that he was this caliber of player. And it's interesting, both quarterbacks that transferred out, Drew Pine, I did not think he'd end up at a school like Arizona State, and now Tyler Buchner, I did not imagine he would end up at a school like Alabama. So what is your take on this, Jamie?
Well, I mean, it's a tremendous, first of all, if you look at, I don't think, people will be like, Buchner, it's just like Tommy Rees. It's not like Tommy Rees because Tommy Rees was left for a lateral move. Buchner's going because he thinks he's going to be the starter at Alabama. So it's a totally different situation. And you can't blame any kid for wanting to go and do that. And if he was going to do that, and it's, I would say, even though, they didn't name the starter, but no one was going to picking him to win the job, even long term, even though he had a really good spring and all that. So you get it. So no shade at Tyler Buchner for that decision. Good for him. Good for him, right? So big bet on yourself. And hey, I'm all about that, dude. Bet on yourself. That's great.
Yeah. Rajon says you'd be bummed, but would you be surprised if he didn't win the job? I would be. I mean, look, he was brought in for a reason. They have 2 quarterbacks. It's not like I think he's got.
They have 4 quarterbacks. I mean,
yeah. Because they brought in 2 freshmen.
Yeah, they brought in 2 freshmen that they were both like top 150 kids, like highly ranked guys, right? Like guys who had offers, could have gone anywhere, national guys, right? So, okay, so obviously all those guys aren't saying, right? Like if I was Ty Simpson right now, I'd be in the portal like today. Just why?
You know who should pick him up? I swear to you, Notre Dame should look at him. Notre Dame should look at Ty Simpson. 100%.
Whatever. And like I said, no shade to Tyler Buchner, but I would take Ty Simpson over long term over Tyler Buchner in a heartbeat. Just long term. If you're looking for like, hey, here's a guy that first of all, he's not going to be Sam Hartman this year, but maybe 2024 he's your starter or something like that. Like that could be like. When he was a 5-star for a reason. He's like a super talented, smart kid. Okay, so it's a huge bet Buchner on himself. It's like a gigantic bet on Tommy Rees being like, I'm a genius. I know what it is really like. He's like, I know more. This is the guy that I recruited, that I evaluated, that I think I've worked with, I've developed. This is my guy, even though he went and recruited Sam Hartman on the portal to play over him. But whatever, forget about that. But this is like him saying like, okay, this is the guy, instead of going somewhere else for it or whatever, right? And obviously, there's all these rumors, but they got turned down by these other guys. But whatever, right? But still, like, there's still other people that they could go after or whatever. It's Alabama. You would hope that they'd be able to get somebody better than the guy projected to be Notre Dame's backup. So it's a massive bet by Tommy Rees there. And Nick Saban, man, like you're basically being like, Tommy Rees, totally believe in you. I'm a believer. I totally believe in Tommy Rees. This is the guy. This guy knows quarterbacks. This guy's going to be whatever. Like it is wild. It is wild for Nick Saban to do that because Nick Saban, he hasn't been a risk taker. Like, I risk in the sense of he's taken risks with guys with bad pasts in terms of like, the coaching rehab, right? He's done that. He's done that part of it, right? But even then, he knows that he's not going to get heat for that because he's Teflon there, right? Like nothing's going to bad's happen. He's just won enough there that he can get a coach. The guy gets in trouble. He's like, oh, I gave him a chance, fire him. And then that's that. No one was going to question him. But he hasn't taken a lot of chances on like coaches that kind of weren't in his circle. And then also being like, okay, totally, I'm going to buy into everything that this coach has said. And maybe it's because he's old and maybe he's like, he doesn't give AF anymore. And he's just, this is what, and he's just not much of a believer in Tommy Rees. But it is crazy that Alabama's like the guy that right now, as of right now, he is the favorite to be Alabama's quarterback.
Yeah.
He's going to be Notre Dame's backup. Like,
yes.
I don't think like it's in a weird way. Like, I don't know how, Alabama fans got to be just going like, what are we doing? I wouldn't blame them.
So you look at like, okay, the Alabama's quarterbacks did not have a good spring game, right? Well, no. Tyler Buchner didn't have a good spring game. Now I look at it a little different because it's like 5 days later he's at another school, so maybe he knew like I'm not going to be here. And so look, if you know you're not going to be at a school, then you're not going to be into it. You're not really. You approach it totally different. Like that this is the school. Like he would approach the game totally different than like Steve Angeli or Kenny Minchie or someone, or even Sam Hartman, right? Like so. I take his spring game performance now, like I see it in a totally different way. Because like again, a lot of the mistakes that he made, like that, like not knowing where to go with the ball and that sort of thing, like he's not totally locked in. I totally understand. Like I kind of get that part, right? It's hard to play football.
I
when
think
you're
he
totally
must have
knocked
been.
in.
I mean, the way how quickly this kind of came down to, I think it's pretty obvious that, which I mean, whatever. I'm not criticizing it. It's happens all everywhere.
No, it is what it is. Yeah.
There's back channeling going on, and it was like, this was like he knew that like, even if he didn't know, hey, for sure I'm going to go into the portal. He was like, I'm probably going to go into the portal, and I'm going to visit Alabama. I think that was pretty clear by like he's on a plane when the day that he announced that he was in the portal. So like that doesn't just happen, right? So I think it was pretty obvious that that was the case, and I think you can infer from that he wasn't locked in. He wasn't locked in. He was already thinking about this and thinking about being at Alabama.
Rajon is asking if Tyler Buchner fits in their offense. Yeah. I mean, it's Tommy Rees's offense. So
I mean, it's the one 100%.
It's the one. It's one. I mean, look, from that sense, it makes total sense for Buchner to do this. Because offense, he doesn't have to go in and learn anything new.
Oh, he's at like a way bigger disadvantage than all the guys that are already there too. It's his coach. It's the scheme. It's the terminology. He knows all that. All he has to do is get used to the players.
Yeah.
All those other guys, it's like they had a spring. Tyler Buchner's had 2 years, right? So like, I mean, he's at a massive advantage, and also too, I think you can see with Tommy Rees, he's a guy that it's been his history at Notre Dame. He adjusts to his personnel.
Yep.
Jack, the offense with Jack Cohn didn't look anything like it looked with, Drew Pine even, and then even with Tyler Buchner. Tyler Buchner was vastly different. So they're going to lean into Tyler Buchner and his skill set now. I don't know. Like, I think it's just it's so intriguing. It's actually such like a kind of like, even if you're taking out of like the Notre Dame part of it, it's such like an interesting storyline.
Yeah.
To be like, because if you're looking at where he's at, he's all potential. That's really what he is, right? He's all potential. And I know he showed a lot of potential in the Gator Bowl, right? He showed a lot of potential to some really good things in the Gator Bowl. But he still like has never shown, especially on Saturdays, that he can win from the pocket. He has never shown that he can be consistently accurate. He hasn't been healthy.
He hasn't stayed healthy.
He hasn't stayed healthy. I also think, obviously they're going to run him a lot because that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that he's not physical or he could be fine, but running against Notre Dame's schedule and then running against the guys in the SEC West, he's going to get hit a lot more. He's going to get hit a lot more, right? So, and the athletes are better in general too. So, maybe he won't be as effective. I mean, there's a lot of questions there, and also too, I think it's just from a sports perspective, I totally get ND fans being like, I want this guy to fail. I want Tommy Rees to fail. Plus, it's Alabama. Like, everybody hates Alabama because they win all the time, and Nick Saban's a villain and all this stuff. I get it. It's just going to be really interesting to see if it actually works. And if it does, then you just have to say, like, you just got to just like take your hat off to Tommy Rees and just be like,
tip your cap, man.
Yeah, because if it doesn't, it would. If it goes bad, Tommy Rees could be 1 year and out in Alabama, and that's how it could go. Where he was on the rise, he might be the OC at Utah State next year or whatever. Like that's kind of how it could go, right? Like whatever. Probably Brian Kelly would probably hire him, but whatever, or something, right? Like it's just wild. It's crazy. It's also like outside of this, it's also why you love college football. Because it's just like. only in college football could you get
Yeah.
this kind of story.
Yeah. I mean, Brian Kelly's got to be, I mean, he's got to be, can't believe his luck. I mean, just,
I know
it's
hilarious. But also too, but this is the other thing, because so Kelly beat Alabama last year, right? Kelly knows Tyler Buchner pretty well.
Yeah.
Like he knows him pretty well. He obviously knows Tommy pretty well, right? LSU is going to go after him, and that game is just so much more interesting now. Like, oh man, can my DVR go how many months ahead? You gotta make sure I get that. Save that one.
Yeah, save that game. Let's talk about the Notre Dame angle for a bit, because James, I don't know if James is asking about like next season, like in 2023 or 2024. We talked about in the kind of reaction. I think the chances of them getting a quarterback for 2024 now in the portal is very high, very high. But we've been talking about getting a quarterback from the portal now post spring going into 2023. And, you know, I've had a tough time coming up with who is going to do this? Who would come? Ty Simpson is a pretty good, like, I'm not saying it's him. Like, I have no idea what he's thinking. Like, I don't.
It would have to be. I think that's.
I think
the kind
someone
of guy
like
would have
that
to be.
though. Yeah, like just completed his freshman year, highly ranked player, has 4 years of eligibility, and it's like he didn't lose his job. He didn't do anything like that. He didn't work out with like a new OC and that sort of thing. He can sit behind Hartman for a year in an offense that's how does he feel about Tommy Rees's offense, right? Like he can't feel super duper about it.
He probably doesn't like Tommy Rees that much.
Yeah. So that's the kind of situation where it's like that could work out. So that remains to be seen. So yeah, I mean, things are just what a whirlwind 4 or 5 days.
So one other thing I want to add to that too, because I think so much depends right now on, I mean, obviously how the Notre Dame staff feels about Steve Angeli and Kenny Minchie. And I've heard they like both of them, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that they think that for sure they're going to be good enough to start in 2024. Or that for sure that they feel confident about them being a backup now, right? But it's something that, I mean, I was talking with Matt about this, about how basically those guys, first of all, let me read this quote from quarterback coach Gino Guidugli. This is what he said about Steve Angeli earlier this spring. Steve Angeli has had a phenomenal spring camp. His decision-making has been great. His ball placement is great. We have to find a way to get him more reps and continue to develop Steve. I think Steve has a shot to be a really good quarterback as well. I'm not in here just hyping everybody up, but I think all three of those guys are having a great jam. Enjoy Steve, and he's getting better every day. I mean, not for nothing. That's encouraging, right? And I think last year heard a ton of good stuff about him, that they were like, oh, he's better than they thought they thought he was. And just in the brief instances we saw him, he impressed. He was impressed. He showed poise. He looked like a guy who was confident, and that's always something I think matters. And then with Kenny Minchie, I know you and I both heard, Greg, that he did really well in the scrimmage that wasn't open to the media.
The Jersey
right?
scrimmage.
Yeah. And so the thing is with all of this, though, is that for him and Minchie, because they had they were going with the 3s and 4s the whole time, because they were trying to give Tyler Buchner, they're saying you got a fair shot here, right? So Buchner and Hartman, and of course they got to get Hartman ready. Like he needs to learn, he needs all this stuff. So those guys got all the reps pretty much, right? With the 1s and 2s, right? So Angeli and Minchie were like 3s and 4s. And there's a big difference when you're working with 3s and 4s, because you got like walk-on offensive linemen protecting, right. You're throwing to walk-ons.
Running backs are walk-ons.
Yeah, like a lot of that. And then also, I think it's pretty obvious that the 3s and 4s on defense are way better than the 3s and 4s on offense right now for Notre Dame. Like you would say Josh Burnham and Aiden Gobara, Tyson Ford, like not all those guys might not play for Notre Dame this year, but I think all those guys are going to be players for Notre Dame, and like, and maybe this year too. And they're definitely better than like they're going to, make walk-ons look bad, right? So, and same with like corner, like Chance Tucker is better than is going to be way better than a walk-on, whatever. Ryan Barnes is going to be way better than like all of this kind of stuff, right? So I think that plays a part in it. And when I was talking to my buddy who covers Texas football, University of Texas, and I was asking him about Arch Manning, and he said basically kind of like similar to what Angeli and Mitchie, it's like they like him and whatever, and I think he's on track or whatever, but they had to give. I mean, Ewers still has to. Quinn Ewers still has to lock the thing down, and then Malik Murphy they really like as backup. So those guys got all the reps, and Arch was with 3s and 4s. And the difference is that with Malik Murphy with the 2s, he's throwing to like a former top 100 receiver as the second string guy, and Arch is throwing to 160-pound walk on, right? And it's just a totally different. It's a totally different scenario. You can't really get a full evaluation of it. And now, like, long story short, Angeli and Minchie, now those guys get to rep with the 2s. They get a chance now. So in a way, it's way better because now you're going to have to get a chance to see where they're at. Because one of the reasons why Ian Book was able to ascend and do all these things is because he wasn't stuck as like the 4th guy. He in his second year, it was Kaiser didn't stay in school. So it was Wimbush and he was the backup. And it was like, it was going to be him, or I think Brendan Clark came in, whatever. Right. So it was like, he got all those number 2 reps. He got way better. He got all that experience, and that just helped propel him and propel his career. Right. And I think with Angeli and Minchie, those guys have that opportunity now, and whether or not they'll take advantage of it and they're going to be those guys. I mean, I don't know whether or not CJ Carr is going to come in and whatever. I don't know, but they'll have a good idea now. If one of those guys is going to do it, chances are both of those guys aren't going to be around for 2024. So they might have to go in the portal anyways, right? Because that's just the way it is, right? You just look, you just see where the writing's on the wall. If like this guy's ahead of you. We always say, hey, be patient. You never know. It could work out. Most guys aren't patient. We've just saw with Drew Pine and Tyler Buchner. So I guess we'll see. But, I am excited to kind of see whether or not those 2, with those reps that they're going to get now, not just in the summer, and not just in the fall, but all summer in terms of 7-on-7 and stuff like that. Yeah. Now before, those guys are just they're not even in the mix, right? They're just like trying to do whatever they can. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, I mean, I never even talked to these top receivers before because I wasn't getting to throw them. Now I'm throwing to these guys every day, so it'll be a great opportunity for those guys. And
like not just the reps, but like just mentally too. Yeah. Like now mentally, like Angeli switches on in a different kind of way. Same with Minchie, because like you said, the reps are going to be there. David Solomon, he's Tyler Buchner is going. He announced he's going to Alabama, so that's off of the that's the Stanford Cal stuff is off the table. The only thing I'll say about Angeli is I was at the BC game. I was at the USC game, and I love the way the ball comes off his hand, man. It really does. It comes off hard. It comes off spinning, and you can just see that nice spin on the ball. It just looks good. I like how it comes off. I think he's got good pop to it. So there's a lot of good stuff from Steve Angeli there. So it'll definitely be interesting. It'll definitely be an interesting thing. All right, Jamie, let's move on to the recruiting aspect of the show. And so this is what I'm going to say. We're going to talk a lot about recruits and that sort of thing. And I want to throw out a caveat here, but before we get into that, because I had an interview with Drew White yesterday, former Notre Dame linebacker and captain, and which is really good. That's going to come out tomorrow. It was a really good interview. I suggest everyone listens to it. Like he told a lot of stories. He talks a lot about, getting yelled at by Clark Lee, and all those other things. So that's really cool.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. News is breaking, Jamie. Breaking news.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. We'll talk, but let me finish the thought.
Yeah.
We don't know how any of these guys are going to turn out, right? Drew White was a low 3-star player. He's no one's favorite recruit. Comes in 3-year starter.
I was saying he was captain. One of my favorite recruits. I have to say.
But you're different.
Yeah,
you're different.
I love.
I'm just saying, like, let's just, with humility, we talk about these guys, right? So, all right, let me just put this on, and we're going to load it up. If people are on Twitter, they've seen what the news is. And here it is. Isiah Canion, breaking news, has committed to Notre Dame. He is a 4-star receiver out of Warner Robins, Georgia, 6'3", 190, 194 by composite. Overall, 4-star player on 247's composite rankings. Jamie, you have a film Don't Lie about him that's out right now. Let's talk about Isiah Canion. Let me see what you have him as. Oh, I didn't see it. What do you have Isiah Canion?
I have him as a 4-star, a grade of 90. He is, I think, if you look at kind of like his like raw numbers and stuff and like what he did, they're not great because I think he averaged like 15 yards a catch, whatever. That's good, but like he doesn't have like crazy stats because he played quarterback. And he played receiver, and he played a little bit of DB too in limited time. He also got a couple picks as a DB too. But so he's kind of like a multi-position. He's a guy who, like a lot of high school players and stuff too. I mean, the guys are coaching to try to win, right? So they're putting the best guys that they have out there, and he's their best quarterback. So he's been playing quarterback a lot too. But he's going to play for receiver for Notre Dame, and he's a guy that I would say Chancey Stuckey. Killing it on the trail right now. Chancey Stuckey, really, really liked him. Really thought like this guy has some serious potential. And I originally watched him and I was like, man, I just wanted to kind of like see more because there's obviously not a ton of wide receiver film with him. But the more I watched him and diving back in a little bit of the stuff from the sophomore stuff too. And I saw some testing numbers for him, and he's got some elite athletic testing numbers, right? Like he runs like low 4.5s, incredible like jumping numbers, really like athletically. Like if you put them in the NFL combine right now, you'd be like, oh, this guy's like a good, like comparable NFL wide receiver athlete, right? And he's going into senior high school, so that's where you kind of look at him. And then when you kind of dive back and rewatch him, this guy's just got crazy speed. He has a different gear. He's going to be a big time deep threat. I think you want to see him expand his route tree and all this kind of stuff and develop as a receiver. Obviously that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But just in terms of like Notre Dame needing like straight speed, a deep threat, a guy who can track the ball well, a guy who can really like just destroy the cushion of a corner in an instant. That's him. He's that guy. And that's why he's like kind of like, and because he's still raw in certain areas in terms of like, want to see him do more. That's why he's a low 4-star, but he is a guy who really, really could rise up because, he's a really exciting athlete.
All right, let's throw on some video of Isiah Canion here. I mean, this route reminds me of EQ, Equanimeous St. Brown, right there, like his kind of body type as well.
Yeah, and obviously you see him win a jump ball. That's always a good thing. You want to see a guy kind of do that. But like, here he is a quarterback, right? So yeah, you can see. I mean, he's got a pretty good arm at quarterback too. That's not a bad throw. And obviously he's a dual threat guy, so you see a little bit of him as a runner too. And here he is a corner.
This is a great play. This is a
great play.
That is so hard. He covers the route like a receiver, and I got to tell you, it's very hard. It's very hard because the quarterback is not throwing you the ball; he's throwing it to someone else. So be able to track a ball that is not being thrown to you, that takes a lot.
Okay,
I mean, that's tremendous ball speed.
And this is like, I mean, just look at there. He cooks that guy. He cooks that guy. Like that is just, I mean, that is like elite speed. That is testing, matching up with, you know, the eye test in terms of what you see on film, right? And that's kind of like the main thing with him is that you see that. And here he's back at quarterback again, obviously. But yeah, and that is what makes the evaluation kind of incomplete because you don't see as much of him at other things. But even there, just like simple kind of things, because he's good, and you know, winning after catch, it's always good, but kind of pressing the corner, getting him to open up, and then on the comeback route, right? Like that's something, oh, this sluggo, beautiful, right? And then to separate and then track it. Love that, right? So I think one of those things too, and I think, you know, there's always people who make too much of it, but when Stuckey said that Tobias has that kind of special Randy Moss thing where he's a guy who can separate when the ball's in the air, right?
Yeah.
And I see that's one of the things in my notes that I said, like, oh, and obviously there's a nice, you know, cake block too, but that's kind of what you see from Canion too, right? Is that he's a guy who can separate when the ball's in the air, right? When it on a deep ball, he can gain that extra separation because he just has that little bit extra speed that he can go and separate, right? So, man, I really like this, especially because you're already got you got Cam Williams, who I think is kind of a guy who can do it all, right? He's your guy who's going to be your likely wide receiver one, but then you have a guy like this too, who's kind of similar in the Braylon James mode of like, I think this guy is just going to be just a big time athlete who, you know, needs, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to kind of fully develop, but wow, does he have just an incredibly high upside, and wow, does he have that kind of speed that Notre Dame's really been missing at the position.
I think Notre Dame too has had a lot of success with guys who play quarterback in high school, but quarterback is not their position. And I don't think they've had someone who is as physically gifted as Isiah Canion is, right? Like he has like really good physical gifts. Like he was at a camp recently, ran a 4.51 laser, which goes to show, like as a 6'3" guy to run a 4.5, it's hard to get, you know, that kind of acceleration out of long legs like that. Like you can watch him, like he's very long limbed, right? So he's got really good length there to get that kind of acceleration, to get a time like that. That's the type of thing where in a college program, you put him in a college program, a college weight program with Matt Bayless for 3 or 4 years, and then he goes to the combine and runs 40. That's when you get the Chase Claypool freakish 4.42, you know, 4.43 type 40 time. Like I think that's physically in there for him.
Yeah.
And so that's where you could get like a really good kind of athlete, and he can really hurt defenses. I love him with what they're looking at with the rest of the class, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But with Cam Williams, like I don't see Isiah Canion. I think could be a boundary. First of all, he could play all three positions. I don't think there's like a limit on that sort of thing with him, but he can. I love him at the field with Cam Williams. And then we're going to talk about Micah Gilbert, who's also a wide receiver training to Notre Dame right now. I love him as a big slot. So the complementary pieces at wide receiver, I think, are really good. We're going to bring on go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say my comp that I gave him was former LSU receiver DJ Chark. So good. Just like a guy that just can really he can fly and need some refinement. And it took time for Chark to become that guy. And he never really kind of fully got there in terms of like everything, but just I mean, he was a big play machine because that's what he ended up being. And obviously was a second round pick, elite athlete.
Yeah, we're going to bring on Notre Dame recruiting guru Christian McCollum, who has some really good insight into Isiah Canion and how the staff feels about him. There's our guy, Christian, right there.
Look at this.
Christian.
Look at this.
Look, I brought him in. I'm going to give him the big screen right here. He's going to be the main event right now. Christian, Isiah Canion commits to Notre Dame, Warner Robins, Georgia. What can you tell me about him and his recruitment and how the staff feels about him as a player?
Yeah, so he's a guy they identified early before, not necessarily early, but before anybody else, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those things of, I mean, at some point it probably was, but when his name hit the radar, it wasn't like, okay, this is a guy we're thinking about. We just want to see more, By the time his name hit the radar, Notre Dame clearly wanted him, right? Like he was out in Bloomington going to Indiana, and Notre Dame found out, and they got in touch with him, and Chad Bowden was like, are you in Indiana? You need to get your butt here. And they rearranged it and they got there and then that's when they offered them, right? It wasn't a thing of like, hey, come back in camp. A lot of times you'll see these guys that are emerging guys, even if it's 24 guy late, like we like you, can you come back to camp and then we'll see if we offer, or even if they do offer, we're offering and, come back to camp just so you can compete. This was a guy they were all in on, right? And I know a lot of times everyone knows he played quarterback down the stretch last year for his high school team because of the starter was injured. A lot of times people wonder, are you projecting, right? Are you taking what you've seen from him at quarterback and trying to figure it out? Like Rodney Gallagher comes to mind, Kendall Abdul-Rahim, those kind of guys. Nope, that wasn't it. They didn't even really watch his quarterback film. So this is a guy and like they love him, right? So like elite traits was told to me multiple times. His testing numbers are really, really, off the charts, one of the fastest guys in the entire class, acceleration, his shuttle time, all those things, his first 10, all those things really just check the boxes for Notre Dame. And when Mike and I did a show a few weeks back looking at receivers, this is one of the guys we pointed to and said, hey, this is a guy you need to watch because Notre Dame's in on him. He likes Notre Dame. He doesn't have a ton of offers now, but even since then, Florida State's come in, NC State's come in, Mississippi State, Stanford. He's a guy that was really, really on the verge of blowing up. And, I think sometimes people are like, well, if he waited a little longer, he would have got more offers and a higher ranking. And shoot, that doesn't matter to Notre Dame. They don't care what the ranking is. This is a guy they wanted, and they went and got him.
He got in before Jamie and I even liked him. And that's because originally we were like, I don't know, man, this guy's really raw. The more you watch him, the more you kind of see the fit. And not just that, but you see the fit within the rest of the class, right? When you look at Cam Williams and what he can bring, and then they're going after Micah Gilbert, they're going after Jason Robinson. He has a little bit of the unique build, the elite kind of skill set that players have. I'm gonna get his face off the thing because there you go. Now I'm gonna flip you back. He has that kind of the elite traits that you talk about, Christian, where he can run, he can jump, he's got the shuttle times, he's got quick change of direction, kind of like Tobias when he's got the quick feet, right? You got quick feet as a long athlete. That really stands out to me. And Jamie kind of touched on that as well. How does he? Do you have how does he fit in with the rest of the group and that sort of thing? How they see the wide receiver class coming together as a whole?
Yeah, I know you guys had alluded to Micah Gilbert. He's another guy I see coming along. Notre Dame's in a great spot with him coming out of the spring weekend. Wouldn't be shocked to see him do something here relatively soon. So you look at with him, Cam Williams. Now you got three. You mentioned Jason Robinson. He's another guy who was up. All of a sudden, right? This always happens. You talk about a position. You say, oh, they only got this guy. They only got Cam Williams, and Jason Robinson's no lock. Emmett Mosley's, trending whatever way. They're looking beyond Burdell Richardson now. What's going on? And then all of a sudden you get, a guy like Isiah Canion in the boat, and you're in a looking good spot for Micah Gilbert. Jason Robinson coming out of the visit, at least saying some positive things. So, all of a sudden you're in a position where now you're going to have to make some decisions. And that's where you want to be in the end.
Do you see Notre Dame taking more than 3 receivers in this class?
Yeah, I think there's probably some guys they wouldn't be able to turn down or wouldn't want to turn down. But I don't know if that's, totally, and I mentioned James about this before, and Mike and I is the right things, but I think there's also some like kind of things that go on there that make you wonder, how much you want to put all your eggs in that basket. So, I think it's going to come down to one of those. It's another thing where, it's easy to try to pick these numbers and go through them now, but in the end, you know how it comes. Someone's going to shake loose, someone's going to transfer, someone's going to get hurt, someone's going to go pro. Your numbers are going to change in the end. There's going to be athletes on the board. So, I'm not sure that's something they need to decide right now.
Cool. All right, Christian, your connection's going in and out a little bit. So we want to say thank you for popping in. Thank you for giving us some insight into Isiah Canion and what we're looking for. And who knows, man, if Notre Dame makes a run at as commitments, we're going to have you back on. All right, man. All right, Christian's.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, connection's going in and out. Thank you to Christian for coming on. So Jamie, really good stuff. Really good stuff. And Christian alluded to Mikey Gilbert there. Let's throw up some Mikey Gilbert film because he's another one.
One last thing on Canion too that I think is worth mentioning is that everyone knows that Stuckey was at Baylor, right? He was at Baylor for a year with Dave Aranda, but like Dave Aranda, they kind of adopted their personnel and how they evaluated, especially when it came to like athletic testing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They took a lot of that from Matt Rule, who had that in before. And Matt Rule, if you recall, like he kind of rebuilt the program back from scratch. And they took a ton of guys that you were like, this guy's ranked 1,000. Why are they taking this guy? Who end up being like second, third round draft picks, right? Because they were
Tyquan Thornton is one.
Tyquan Thornton. They caught a couple safeties in the last draft. Like they, especially guys where they were like focused on track times, and verifiable times and all this kind of stuff and measurables and stuff. And, but yeah, Thornton's a perfect example of a guy who wasn't, quite that, but then end up being this like really, really like elite level receiver. And I think that's kind of like why you look at like Stuckey, he probably has a lot of that, has taken a lot of that with him. And that's helped him kind of get in on a guy like Canion. And I think that's like super beneficial for Notre Dame, especially because let's be honest, everybody wants to land the receivers that Ohio State is landing in terms of like these just like no doubt 5-star guys that check every single box. But, when you're not doing that, I mean, obviously they got Cam Williams. He's a guy who could go anywhere, whatever. But like, when you can't get like 4 Cam Williams, you want to get some of these other guys like this. And I think he's a perfect guy who kind of fits that Baylor mold, I guess.
And Canion's on the rise too. I mean, he was a kind of a mid 3-star, bumping up in the composite. Now he was outside of the top 400. Now he's inside the top 200. That's only going to keep getting higher. So he was in early. I said it before. We were I don't want to say down, but I think skeptical at first. Just kind of like, I don't know. Like, seems like there's better options. The more and more you watch him, you kind of understand. Like, okay, he is after this type. Chancey Stuckey was on him very quickly, and it was like pretty clear that he liked him, he wanted him, and like type A, we're top of the board kind of guy, right? Like this isn't Notre Dame settling. They think that he's a top of the board wide receiver, and they really enjoy what he can produce there. Coach Humph asked, is it a true statement that Canion seems like someone who plays faster than his 40 time would indicate? His 40 times 44.51 as a 6'3" guy. I mean,
as like a 16-year-old.
Yeah, like to me, that's how he plays, and that's elite. Like Jamie said, like as a high schooler
at that age, it's elite.
No one in high school knows how to like run a 40. No one does. They literally just stand there and they get up there and they just run as fast as they can. Anyone who trains for a 40 would not do it like that, right? So a 4.51 laser, that's legit. That is a legit time. Kyle Hamilton was a 4.7 in high school, right? So and he dropped down to a 4.59 as a college player. So
Will Fuller, okay, here's the thing. Will Fuller was like mid 4.5s in high school.
Yes. What he ended up becoming,
I'd say he was pretty fast.
It worked out, I think, Jamie.
Yeah.
All right. We alluded to another wide receiver. Let's stay with the wide receiver theme because we're talking about those guys. We'll talk about Micah Gilbert from Charlotte, North Carolina, where I just visited. I did not see Micah Gilbert on that visit, unfortunately. And here come his highlights. He's there in the slot there. I love him. I love him as a
big slot. There we go again.
Yeah,
Greg.
big slot. We love the big slots, Jamie. The big slots speak to us. And Micah Gilbert, I should put up a banner that we're looking at Micah Gilbert highlights. I love like to me, he is a little bit more twitchy version of Jaden Thomas. He probably doesn't have that kind of size, but I just think he's a twitchier version of Jaden Thomas in the slot. I love the way he's constantly running over the middle. You're going to see later on in these highlights, like he's working the middle of the field, whether it's like a skinny post out of the slot or whether it's a quick slant. There's tons of people around him. He's catching the ball, moving in and out of traffic there. So doesn't have the fear going over the middle. I love his game. I love here's one exactly.
Yeah.
High
exactly
throw,
that.
3 people around like that's and going up and catching it, right? Doesn't have the alligator arms. Really good stuff. What is your take on Micah Gilbert, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Thomas is my comp for him too. And I think he's got a little bit where you see Jaden Thomas, like, so you saw him in the spring game make Clarence Lewis miss and score that touchdown there. Like Jaden Thomas has got some wiggle. I think, he might even have a little bit more after the catch. Gilbert, like you said, than Thomas, just a little bit more upside there. But so you got that kind of upside with it. But also, I think this is something that Mike and I were talking about on Power Hour for the past few weeks too, where who's like Notre Dame needed like a contested catch guy. Right? They needed a bigger body in this class. So this is a guy that it's important that they land. And I know he's going to announce on Tuesday, I believe, right? I think that's when,
I think Tuesday? That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's an absolute, and Notre Dame's obviously looking really good for him. Matt predicted to him to Notre Dame. I mean, he's a crucial guy because and it's like you kind of said too, there's the contested catches and everybody kind of thinks jump balls, right? That's what people think when that, and he's obviously showed in this film that he can win there, but it really isn't about that in the long run because most of the contested catches you're going to have are like in traffic, dude hanging on you, guy grabbing back, like grabbing your jersey while you're doing anything. You got to catch it in a tight window, like some of those throws that Sam Hartman made in the spring game where it's like, that Jaden Greathouse was making in the spring game. And that's the same kind of thing, right? There you go. Another big slot, a guy you can win in traffic, right? You're going to bring the ball in traffic. You have the hands, you have the strength, you have the physicality to box somebody out, like the body control. That's all like super important. And here you go after the catch again, right? Just making the first guy miss and turn that into a first down. Like that's huge. I think Micah Gilbert is kind of exactly what Notre Dame needs as like another complement in the class. Like, I mean, if they add him to Canion and Williams, like, man, I like, Christian said things change. You can get, and certainly like, I don't think it would be a mistake to take Jason Robinson or anything like that. Like, obviously he's got like another speed guy, another big play guy. I think you can't have enough speed, right? But if you called it a day with only those 3 guys and that they ended up being the 3 guys in your class, that's a pretty good class to follow up with what they did in this current class, right?
So CFB Hertz asked a question earlier, and I think it was about the 2024 class as a whole. But I want to, if Notre Dame ends up with Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, and Isiah Canion, do you like that 3 better than, I guess, the early enrollees? Do you like that 3 better than the early enrollees from the 2023 class? I kind of do.
I would say yes, because I like Cam Williams better than any of the guys that they took. Like, and I think Cam Williams has the highest ceiling out of any of those guys. So I would say Yes. But I don't think it's like it doesn't blow it out of the water, because I think Braylon James has a chance to be awesome. I think Jaden Greathouse, I mean, I think people see he's probably going to help them this year. And Rico Flores, I think, has got a chance to maybe help them this year and be a pretty good player too. And that's not to say like Caleb Smith right now, who is, by the way, another guy had the Texas Tech offer. Texas Tech, where did those guys, their personnel guys come from? They came from Baylor, right? Like he fits that mold. So he's another in the Isiah Canion in terms of maybe he's a lot better than his ranking in terms of just how fast he is too. So, I mean, he's easily one of the more intriguing guys that I can remember them landing out of a guy who's like a high 3-star guy. So, I like that class a lot, but I would say this class, just because I think, you got that, you just got the big play element from basically all of them. And I would say that, overall the ceiling is just higher with those three. So yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say. If all three of the projected, enrollees or commitments in 2024, if they all become hit their potential, you have legitimate stars, in my opinion. And I don't know that that's the case. I don't know that Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores are stars. I think they would be but I think the floor is also higher with the 2023 class as well. We already kind of know, Jaden Greathouse is going to be good. And we know kind of Rico Flores is going to be good. We don't know that Braylon James will be good, but it's
probably, but
he has that potential, like Isiah Canion.
He has the potential to be. I think Braylon James has the potential to be the best out of that group, but he's, Greathouse might have a lot better earlier career than him. That's just kind of how I look at it. But yeah.
Coach on Fast, do you think it makes sense in today's college football to bring in 4 wide receivers each year due to the transfer portal?
I think it's an interesting way to look at it. I think you do have to be, I would say probably 3 every year. That's the way I look at it. I don't think you can have 2 in a class and feel good about that. I think at least 3 every year.
Yeah. In
some years you look at it differently. But in saying that, you don't want to get stuck with something where with it all depends on the kind of offense you want to run and stuff too. And you don't want to be in a situation where, and I know the transfer portal, a lot of these guys are transferring out. I mean, it's not as that as much at Notre Dame, right? This is obviously not Colorado. It's not quite like that. So, and you want to oversign. Yeah, sure. Cause you're going to bring in more than 85 because guys are going to leave and whatever. Right. And now Notre Dame's already under 85, right. For the thing where people were worried a couple months ago. I don't know. I think you just got to depend on the year. Right. And you got to kind of see where it's at, because most of all too, guys want to play, right? Guys want to play. So, who was the guy? Ronan Hannafin, right? Ronan Hannafin, who was the guy who went to Clemson, who one of the reasons that he didn't choose Notre Dame, not every reason, but part of it was he didn't want to be the 4th wide receiver in the class, right? Where, you understand it, because guys are I want to have a better chance to play. Well, Clemson's only taken 2 or 3 or whatever they took, right? It's a difference, right? And you're going to get kind of stuck there, especially if they if guys are ranked higher than you think they think that they have them higher on the board or whatever, right? Not everyone is going to want to jump in the boat at being the 4th or 5th guy.
Yep. Let's kind of end it here with the last player, or another player that Matt has predicted to Notre Dame, and that's Bryce Young, the son of Notre Dame player Bryant Young, who's now an NFL Hall of Famer, which is good, I think. So let's talk about him, good. Jamie. I know you like him. He blew up. Yeah, when he originally was kind of linked to Notre Dame, it's okay, this is a legacy and that sort of thing, and there's some upside. Then he started getting looked at by every every program out there, Alabama being one. And so that kind of raises his profile, but I know you really like him. So tell me about Bryce Young. We'll put up some of his highlights here.
Yeah, I really like him. So first of all, I think Al Washington did a really nice job with his evaluations.
Yeah.
Just because he was a guy that, and it's easy to say, you're just going to see some great acceleration here to the quarterback here. But it's easy to say that, he's a legacy and that part of it. And obviously his dad is a legend. He's an NFL Hall of Famer, all that kind of thing. But here's the thing. He never played defensive line, or he played on the edge a tiny bit. Was never a full-time defensive lineman, was mostly like a receiver and a linebacker. He was 6'3", 208 when he camped at Notre Dame. He's like 6'6", 240 now, right? Like he has grown, whatever, and he looks skinny. Like he is going to get way bigger. And you already see kind of like the twitch. Oh my God, he just crumples that dude on the trap there. Exactly kind of what you want to see. So you see kind of like the raw ability, the power. Look how long he is, right? Like he is incredibly long, like just long limbs, twitch, speed to power. You see that kind of thing from him. And he's only played, this is first full year at defensive line, right? So I would kind of put him in the like Joe Alt category where you're like so much physical development that he's made just recently and so much more that he's going to have as well. And just because you can already see it.
Yeah.
And then also too, his dad not only was a great player, he coached defensive line. Like he coached defensive line in the NFL and at the college level. I mean, I don't know how involved, if he's as involved as Joe Alt's dad is, very involved in trying to help Joe and in teaching him in something that Joe has talked about. And I don't know how, because different dads are different. They don't want to, maybe he doesn't want to just mess with his son, but certainly he's a pretty good resource that he can go to. And I don't know. I think you can just see on the film here, just the traits, right? I think he is raw in so many ways with hands and all these kind of things that normally players that are new to the defensive line are. And then he's lined up in like a wide 9, like this, right? And wide 9 means you're basically like way outside, like the tight end and stuff too. And is he going to be doing that? No, he's going to be like probably like a big end, maybe even a 3-tech eventually for Notre Dame. So that's different, but that doesn't matter. You're looking at the traits. You're looking at the link, the size, him being able to move. There was a play that I was talking over it, so I didn't get a chance to mention it, but there's a play where he literally like runs down a guy on a screen, like 60 yards,
50 yards down the field.
Yeah. Right. Like that's just not regular humans don't do that. Right. That's not something that you see a lot. So that kind of thing absolutely jumps out at you. I think, I'm a little bit higher on him than some other people right now. I have him as a grade of 92. He's going to decide on Saturday. He's announced he signed on Saturday. I think everybody feels pretty confident Notre Dame's going to get him. And I think too, especially because when he came in, he's like unranked, he's smaller, hasn't played a thing. And I mean, Al Washington obviously saw the kind of traits in him that he was going to be this guy. And man, I just think he's someone that you could see his senior year just look like, wow, like kind of like Jason Owe, who played for Penn State, right? And was a guy that Notre Dame was after. That's the kind of guy who like took a massive jump as a senior and like all of a sudden became like this top 100 type kid. Maybe he might have been top 50. He was very highly ranked by the end of it, where he was like a 3-star before. And I kind of think Bryce Young kind of has that similar type of jump. And if I was going to say like a comp for him, I would probably say like, I don't think it's specifically a Notre Dame guy. I think whenever there's like a big end, people are like Khalid Kareem because he was like the best that Notre Dame has had recently. But I think Jermaine Johnson, who was at Florida State, and was a first-round pick, and was at Georgia before then. Funny story about Tremaine Johnson. Christian and I were at the Army Bowl, week or whatever, and then they had the combine going on, and they don't give you like a lot of information about who's going to be there until you get it late, and you don't know who's going to be a guy. A lot of these guys don't even have like 247 profiles, right, at that time. So I was in the elevator, and I just look behind me, and I see this just massive kid behind me, and I was like, hey, and I just introduced myself, and I was just, because we're literally looking like maybe this guy. I'm like, oh, and it was Jermaine Johnson.
Oh, okay.
And he had 0 offers at the time. He was a kid from Minnesota. He was raw. He didn't like show out like crazy that day, but you could just see, you're like, this guy's going to be a dude. Like, he's just was a freak looking guy. And then he had like academic problems that took him into JUCO and whatever. But eventually you could see like, and you're like, it's just funny. You just like see a guy in an elevator, and you're like, hey, I think this guy's going to be a player. And like, all of a sudden I'm like, what's that?
And he's a first round.
He's a first round pick. Yeah.
So Joe Bro, he kind of has a comment here. I have a good feeling about this class. And that's kind of how I wanted to end it here. Like, I feel I was pretty nervous going into March. Just like, I don't know. There's just, the juice is not there, and you didn't feel it. And now I feel like things are really starting to pick up, and you kind of see like, okay, this is how the class is going to kind of take shape. I think they have a little bit more work to do on the offensive line, which I feel like they have good inroads there. It's just like, it needs to
looking good for Styles Prescott.
Yeah, looking good for Styles Prescott. It just needs to ramp up a little bit more. But beyond that, I just think it's headed in the right direction. I think things are starting to look really good. How are you feeling about the 2024 class right now, Jamie?
I obviously much better, than I did a month ago. And I think that was always going to be the case, because you were going to get to kind of see Notre Dame, didn't, with so much stuff with the coaching carousel, so much coaching turnover, and partly due to weather and all that kind of stuff too. Mm-hmm. They weren't having people visit, right? They weren't, or not many, right? And so a lot of the guys who were kind of like, even their top targets hadn't been on campus in a long time. Like, they had the one junior day in January, and that was kind of it, right? So I think we were going to see a lot in the last month, and like kind of leading up to the spring game. And now you can see where the class is taking shape, right? The class is taking shape. And I think there's still, it's going to be how they finish and where you're going to view it. For me, it's going to be to determine, like, so Kingston Uyeyama, so the linebacker from Bosco in California, who I think is a top 50 kid. It's like one of the elite linebackers in the class. Malachi Williams, who's like a Viper, who they're super high on. He's coming back for an official visit. So is Kingston. Those guys visited for the spring game. Like, I think those guys, like you said, offensive line, and certainly is Caleb Beasley a guy that they can swing back? There's those kind of things are ultimately going to tell the tale between like them having like just a great class or like a good to very good one or whatever. But it's like, it's always going to be those top guys, right? Because if you add those guys along with CJ Carr, Cam Williams, et cetera, like, then you're cooking, right? But so that'll be the long-term thing that kind of determines it. But I really like what they're doing right now. Like, I think obviously they're on a little mini run. I think they're about to go on another little run here with guys, obviously we just mentioned these guys. They just picked up Canion. I think they got a good shot. The last two guys that we talked about, and there's going to be more, right? There's going to be more. So I think they're going to be kind of similar to where they were last year in June. That's where they'll be, like kind of where they were last year. And it depends like how they kind of close, because that's what they did then, right? They got Micah Bell, Christian Gray, Kenny Minchie, like all these things are like, those were obviously key pieces, and you got to kind of see where it goes from there.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a good place to leave it. Thank you everyone for tuning in. More breaking news on the show, Jamie, and maybe next Tuesday we'll have some more breaking news. You never know, right?
You never know.
That's why you got to tune in Hustle every time. Hit the like button, hit subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know we're going live. We got links on the podcast in the description below, so check us out there. Look out for my interview with Drew White tomorrow. It's a really good interview, and I really encourage everyone to listen to it. He did a really good job. That's going to drop in the morning on both YouTube and on your pod feed. So check us out there. If not, other than that, everyone have a good weekend, and we will talk to you next week.